It's 6 a.m. and I'm already behind. It's 6 p.m. I'm still at the office doing my work. It's 11 p.m. I cannot shut my mind down to go to sleep. It's 3 a.m. I wake up and I start thinking about all of the things I need to do coming up. Anybody relate to this? So, hence the book, hence a couple months later, I left the company of my own volition and I wanted to start my own company. And one of the things that I began doing from a consulting standpoint was working with people specifically on productivity. Because I knew how to focus. I knew how to be productive. There was just times when I didn't say no when I should have. So today, what I want to share with you are some stories, some techniques, some strategies, but I really want you to think about your productivity and what it means in your life. Because ultimately, we end up not having a good life if we always feel like we're behind. So are we ready to get started? All right, let's go. So here's the hourglass. That's me in the hourglass with the sand dripping on my head, and I feel like I'm drowning. And what you don't know is the sand in the bottom, that's quicksand, and we're constantly trying to get out of that, right? So here, if we did a close-up in that video or that picture, that would be my face of trying to, get a handle on my day. I call that my woman with hair on fire. Does anybody relate to that? So not to leave the men out in the room, like, okay, we're going to pull our hair out. We're going to say, please help. And so this is a really powerful thing to think about. Are we stuck in that hourglass and we don't really know where we're going? Is this true for some of you, where we have, too much stuff to do and the time has run out, if that makes sense? So one of the things that makes the Business Insights series powerful is that we have some awesome people in the room of different businesses, different levels within the organization. So one of the things I promise you is we're going to do some talking around the table and with doing some fun things this morning. Is that okay with everyone? Yes. Okay, good. This is generally how we look at our day. And we have a lot of stuff to do, but we just don't have enough time. Now, one of the things, I have a philosophy about, how we look at time. And my belief is, if I were to teach you 3 more time management techniques, would it really make a difference? It might not. Because you might be so overwhelmed with this situation, you're not ready to receive that in. So I like to take it back a couple of steps, that it's really your productive mindset. How do you look at productivity and how do you approach it on a day-to-day basis? Because if you think about it, we have an overwhelming workload, we have conflicting priorities, we have way too much to do. Does everybody kind of relate with that? And so, but at the end of the day, what do we want? What we want is personal satisfaction. We want to go to bed at the end of the day and say, you know what? This is Marty talking to herself. You know what, Marty? I had a great day. I got done what I really needed to get done, and I'm ready to go to sleep. And you turn the brain off and you're ready to go. Really, it's not about productivity and getting more stuff done. It's really, at the end of the day, being satisfied that you, in fact, have accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Is there anybody that I'm open to dissenting opinions here. So it's one of those things that, that's what we really want. So what I'd like to do is, here's my desk. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this picture snuck in here. Oh my gosh. Now here's what you need to know is that the yellow Post-it notes have a certain message, right? And the pink ones are completely different. No, it's not really my desk, but I've seen some desks that are like this. Has anybody ever seen a desk like this? So I have 2 desks, and I didn't take a picture of the other one because I was really pretty embarrassed about it. It's not this desk, but it's the piles and piles of files. Who's in the pilot, the pilot file room with me? All right. So, and why do we do that? We keep those files out so that we can, we know right where they are, they're visible, and we never forget them, right? Well, it doesn't always work that way. So sometimes we have a different type of We have a different type of perspective, right, of how we work. I will tell you, I'm one of those. Who here is a work in bursts type of person, where you, Trisha, okay, Michael. So it's like once you get focused, you sit down and then you just crank through a lot of stuff, right? So when you do that, do you have a clean desk and you're just working on the one thing, or do you have other projects around? Yeah, okay. And everybody has a different way of doing it. Here's the key about productivity beyond the personal self-satisfaction. There's no one right way. Trisha's way of doing it is going to be different than Deb's, which is going to be different than Carlos, because none of us went to Time Management 101 in middle school. Did anybody go? I didn't go. And so over the time, we've figured out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. I would submit to you, as you go into 2016, we're already into it about 25 days, 26 days already, to think about how, in fact, you want to maybe jettison some habits that are not working for you and maybe add in just a couple that will work for you from a strategy standpoint, mindset standpoint. So why is it important? I really believe we have to stay with the concept of personal productivity. And it's, if we are personally productive, then we have a way to impact those around us. Who knows someone in this, not in this room, but who knows someone that they just always seem to have their stuff together? Anybody have somebody in your life that's like that? And you look at them in amazement. Do you look at them in amazement? I do. Do you ever ask them what they do differently? Anybody want to share what somebody you know is religious about how they go about doing things? So what she said was that somebody sets an alarm on their iPhone for every little thing all day long. Now, that probably works for that person to trigger. To me, it would be annoying, right? But it doesn't matter. It works for that person. So I met with this one lady, and she said, Lauren, I never procrastinate. And I was like, really? Really? I was like, you're the 1%, the 1/10 of 1% of the world that doesn't procrastinate. And I said, well, why is that? She said, I had a very strict upbringing with a mom who would not let us get away with that. And so early training caused her to not do. So what Carlos said, that in the technology world, you have people that are very detailed oriented. And I would submit to you that for those of you that are familiar with the personality tests, particularly like the DISC as an example, if you're a C on the DISC, you probably are very focused. You're not very fast at your tasks, but that's okay, but you're very methodical and thorough. If you're a high D like me, then in fact, you just kind of blow past details and you speak in bullet points. So sometimes profession and how you're wired. So thanks, Carlos, for bringing that up, because how you're wired, it has an impact on how you look at getting stuff done as well. So let's jump into some fun. On your table, we have a blue envelope. If one person at the table could open the blue envelope. Open the envelope, please. And also on the table, we have some blue note cards. And if I could ask Marty to read what is at the top of the page.
2-minute tasks.
2-minute tasks. How many people get involved in thinking about their day in 2-minute tasks? If you get hit with a 2-minute task, the idea is to just take care of it right then, because if you set it aside, you might not get back to it. And so it's off your plate and you've moved on. So what I want you to do at the table, first of all, I want you to introduce yourself and introduce your company so we all know who we're talking to at the table. But I want you to come up with a list of what might be 2-minute tasks that you might face in your day and how it could come in and you handle it. So I'll give you an example. So let's say Carlos sends me an email and he wants to know the email address of Nikki, and he didn't have it, whatever. For me to go into Outlook or into my phone and look it up probably is about a 2-minute task that I could handle right then and be done with it, rather than putting it off and procrastinating, forgetting about it, and then 3 days later, I get another email from Carlos and he says, Lauren, where the heck is Nikki's address? So that's the kind of the concept. So I just want you to talk to everybody. First, introduce yourself, and I guess what? You guys would be amazed. I have a timer. So we're going to do about 4 minutes of just kind of chatting around the table, come up with a list, and I'm hoping, my goal is, that somebody might have an idea of a 2-minute task that might ring a bell for you. All right, here we go, 4 minutes. Go. So here's what the blue cards are for. If you, in fact, heard something that rings a bell like, oh, that's a good 2-minute task, jot it down on the blue card kind of as a reminder. But here's another technique that I use is actually taking the blue card, I keep it in my purse, and if I'm driving, I don't write when I drive, but if I'm out and about and there's a 2-minute task that I just can't get to, that I need the computer, or I need to access to phone or Wi-Fi or something like that, I jot down what are the 2-minute tasks that I need to get done so that, in fact, they're all right there, and I get back to the office, look at that, and then knock them out. And it might be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. So now that you all, I'm going to ask the scribes to share a couple that you found. So Marty, please. So think about it, 2-minute task is not something that takes a lot of brain power. It's just something that you need to get done, and that generally somebody else is counting on you to get that done. And so you do it, wipe it out, and go forward with that. So again, the thing you want to think about is as you have a 2-minute task that comes into your day, how do you handle it right away? Just so that it's not that small detail that keeps hanging around and you're like, oh, you know, because I think what happens, we think about it longer for 2 minutes than it actually takes to do. Has anybody ever experienced that? Where you think about, yeah, like, dang, why didn't I not get that done sooner? Because in fact, I would have so. All right, so let's move on here. So, and on you're following me on the handout, there's one skill that I believe somebody needs to master. And I believe that it's a situation whereby if you track back and you look at people's day, and if I were to ask you to open your calendar, it could be very telling. In fact, one of the things I do with clients is I do a calendar review. We look at it, go back through what the calendar looks like. And the skill is what's called time boxing. Who here is familiar with the concept of time boxing? Not everybody is, which I was kind of surprised. I spoke last week, and I was surprised that it was not something that people knew about, and so I wanted to share that with you. Do you all have tasks or things, projects, that you need to do that you know are going to take some time and concentration, okay? And we have that in our head, but sometimes it stays in our head. It stays a little bit longer, rent-free, and we don't get to it, we don't do it. So the concept of time boxing is that you actually take a fixed period of time in your calendar and for a planned activity. And so the idea is that you have a deliverable and a deadline. So let me give an example. The example is if I am working on creating this postcard design-wise, and I know that it's going to take me a while to set it up, get the picture taken. If I just randomly start in on it and I've got a little bit of free time, likely I am going to be distracted. What might pop up on my computer is an email, notification, my phone might ring, etc. So the idea behind time boxing is you say, all right, on this particular day, I am going to block out 90 minutes. I'm going to block out 30 minutes. I'm going to block out, and I'm going to set it up so that I have the right environment, I have everything that I need, and I have all distractions. You know, I might have a sign on the door, do not disturb, will be available at 2:30. Who has people that come to your office all the time and knock on the door, interrupt you? But what happens is, if I were to try to do this and start it at 8 o'clock, and I was trying to do it in between distractions, emails, phone calls, meetings, at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, I might have it done, I might not. I keep going in and out of it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what causes our mental fatigue at the end of the day, because we keep jumping back and forth. It's exercise, but it's the wrong exercise. It's mental exercise. So if I were to say, okay, I'm going to block this out, I'm going to knock it out in 90 minutes. I have no idea how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to say 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. Block it out, set the right environment. You will be surprised. It will actually take you less because you're focused and you're concentrated on what it is you need to get done. Here's the thought on time boxing. Here's the thought of, could you take 30 minutes and say, I'm going to clean up all my 2-minute tasks. And just for fun, I brought my to-do list. So I'm a paper and pen kind of gal. Who here is electronic on their to-do list? Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're paper or electronic. It doesn't make you more productive per se. It is what works for you. So if I were to look at my list for today, this, by the way, is my master list. So I have everything dumped in my head that I need to do today, tomorrow, someday. It's on here because if I keep it in my head, it makes it a lot harder to remember. I want to clean up some of the things that I have that I don't need to keep hanging around on here. And so I go through here and I pick off my 2-minute tasks. And I accomplish it in 90 minutes. So I've got about 40 things done, right? Would that make sense? If in fact I did that. So I encourage you to do that. I'll tell you, it is how I wrote my book, was time boxing. And actually I'm a 3-time author, and that was how I wrote my book. And I think there's some authors in the room or people if you're doing that. So with that, let me ask you, is there anybody have any comments or questions about time boxing? It's a really cool skill to master. You go into this time boxing time, and I have a conversation with one of my clients. I said, get the water, get whatever, get the soft music going, whatever you want in your environment to make that happen. Because here's what's happened. We are way more productive when we're calm, relaxed, we're ready to show up and work during this time slot, and we can get a lot done, and we can do the burst work and get things, we can knock it out and be, Here's an example. There's a guy that I work with, his name's Bob, and he has a report that's due to his boss every week. And if he does the report throughout the day, trying to accomplish it on Mondays, it takes him all day long, probably about 3 hours. If he time boxes 45, he's figured it out. It takes him 45 minutes to actually get this accomplished. So he time boxes it, and so he would much rather spend 45 minutes focused than an all-day, 3-hour, whatever amount of time. So I see a lot of head shaking here, and that really does make sense. So what I'm saying is, be intentional with your productivity. I'm not one of those that says, well, you can get twice as much done in half the time. That's a half-truth and a myth. So time boxing, really cool. And now it's time for another exercise. So let's open your yellow envelope. And this is going to be, let's have somebody else at the table open it up. And I want you to read it to your table and then come up with some ideas. So if I could have the unexpected group. Do you have unexpected? Do you have the email? Unexpected? We have unexpected. Unexpected, okay, yes. So could you give us a quick synopsis to everybody? Because a couple of people in the room have unexpected, and the other ones have a different case study. So here's the key, and I'm glad you mentioned that, was when you get those kind of unexpected situations that get thrown at you, is it on a daily basis sometimes? Oh, there we go. On a daily basis, the first thing to do is question, or not in a challenging way, but in a kind way, is do you really need this at the end of the day? Because you had that full day planned, and so it's one of those things, do I actually really need to do this today? And you may, but if you ask, the other question would be, is it negotiable? So you need it today. I'll tell you what, I'm slammed for today. I want, you've been a customer of ours for a long, long time. I really know that you need this information. Would it be okay if I provide it to you tomorrow morning? So ask, right? Not challenge, but just ask, and then see if you can renegotiate, and if without consequences, right? Because you don't want to negotiate with consequences, right? And then if it truly is 6 hours of your day today, guess what? All those other tasks kind of go out the window, and you may need to delegate for somebody else to handle those other tasks because you might be the person to handle it. So let's move to the email, the too many emails, too many distractions case study. Who has that? And I think he hit on the key point to begin with. What's your relationship with your boss? Because it may have been you were hired 18 months ago for this particular role. Meantime, the company has expanded, has different things. You showed some different skills. They piled it on you. And so sometimes it happens where you really, truly have too much work to do. And you might be trying to figure out, why am I spending a bazillion hours at doing this job when I should be able to do it in 8, 10, whatever you're supposed to be doing it in from a time frame standpoint. So one of the questions that I would ask you to think about is, what exactly is causing the overwhelm? Are you getting 150 emails a day? Are you getting 75? Are you getting copied in on things that you don't need to be copied in on? Are you getting pulled into meetings that your presence is nice to have but not really required? A lot of those things happen, so you really have to be intentional and dig deep, because it might be that you're not slow, you're not inadequate, but in fact, you just have too much coming in, and that funnel of the hourglass is only so big for you to get the output going. Does that make sense? Okay. One last piece on time boxing. I'll give a quick 2-minute story of my son. My son's 20 years old, goes to Arizona State, he's a junior. He worked this last summer for Southwest Publishing, selling books door to door, 80 hours a week, literally. And they have a whole program where they teach these kids to look at their day, because they start at 8 in the morning and they work until 9:30 at night, knocking on doors, selling educational books. Awesome company. Rory Vaden is part of that. It's just an awesome company and a great training ground for our millennials. But what they do is they say, don't think of the day of 8 o'clock to 9:30. Think of it in increments of an hour and a half, right? So he got through the summer of just like, all I got to do is get through the next hour and a half, and then the next one starts. So in August, he goes to Arizona State to start his junior year. And he said, you know, Mom, I live in an apartment where I can take the shuttle over to campus. Whether I have class that day, I'm going every day. 5 days a week, I'm heading out at 9 in the morning, and I'm going to stay there till 5, go to my classes, and I'm going to get my schoolwork done during that period of time so that in the evenings I can hang out with the fraternity boys, and on weekends they're free. I have to tell you, the kid did it, and he in fact ended up with a 4.1 for the semester. He got all A's and 1 A+. I didn't know they gave college, A pluses in college. But it was one of those things, like, it was the habit that he had already started. And so having that habit, and I asked him, I said, why do you think you got the grade point? And he's a smart kid, but why do you think you got the grade point? It was discipline and being intentional on how he used his time. Yeah. So, and he was obviously very satisfied. Mom is satisfied because now we can go after some new scholarships. And so anyway, but it's one of those things, just think about how you can reorder your day a little bit with just some minor tweaks. So simple principle to adopt. Now I know this is gonna maybe blow your head a little bit off, but that's okay. So here's the question. When does your day start? Is it 5 a.m.? Is it 6 a.m.? Is it 8 a.m.? My day starts at 10 p.m. So no, I don't work at 10 p.m., but my day starts at 10 p.m. And that's when I go to sleep. I get ready to go to sleep. Because if I don't get a good night's sleep and I'm not rested, I'm not ready to show up for my day. So all I'm saying to you is think about when your day really starts, and it's the night before. Everybody think about that? So my day ends at 9:59 p.m. that day. And again, that's where I'm evaluating, how did the day go? Oh, Marty, I did a great job. Got the things I really needed to get done. Because I have a phrase, and it's on the back of your page, the top one. You'll see some Lauren-isms. And the first one is 5 words. What matters most right now? So at 10 o'clock at night, do I need to be looking at Facebook? Do I need to watch the news? God forbid, I'm not a news person. Because I don't want to put that kind of message in my head before I go to bed, because it will. So my day starts at 10 p.m., and it ends the next day at 9:59 p.m. Now, your time might be different. I'm just suggesting to you that if you show up that day, drag it in, not enough sleep, how productive are you going to be? So what doesn't work? We all know what doesn't work, and so kind of think through that. What does work? And here's the thing I said earlier. There's no definitive one way that works. Everybody has their own what I call recipe, and the deal is you have to figure out what works for you. So if you're not happy in your job, you've got too many emails, you've got too many meetings, too many unexpected things coming at you, how would you reorder that? So one of the things I do, and I often get asked, well, what do you do, Lauren? So I have my master list. Here's what I'm going to work on today. But one of the things on how I handle email, and I don't know why, but I get about 150 emails a day. It's crazy. But here's what I do, and for those in the back, I'll kind of point to it. I'll get an email, and I'll say, am I going to deal with it today, or am I not? Or is there a better time? If I'm in meetings all day today, I cannot necessarily do work on my emails or really respond to them. So I might pop them into the folder, which is the next day, so that I know for sure those things are getting handled. Sometimes people have way too many subfolders, they get lost, emails come in, but I know if I've put it in, so I have 2 techniques. One is, what are the days? So I know at worst, I'm gonna be 5 days behind on something, right? At worst. And then I've got my 2-minute action. If I see an email that's really quick, but I don't have time to deal with it because I'm on the phone or something like that, I'll just pop it into the 2-minute action and then clear that out at the end of the day. How can you make things really easy for you? I believe we make our day of getting things done way too complicated. And so how can we simplify it and go easy on ourselves? Because ultimately, what do we want? Personal satisfaction, right? So let's go back to that time boxing for a second. Here's what I know about 90-minute sessions. If I were to say, Carlos, I have something I need your help on, I need you to really focus on this on the next 90 minutes. If he has not done that in the past, really focused and concentrated on something for 90 minutes, here's what happens. After about 10 or 15 minutes, you're like, oh, I gotta get up and go get something to drink. Or let me check my phone. Because we are not conditioned to work in longer, our focus muscle has gotten really short. Generally, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And for those of us that have ADHD, it's easy to get distracted. So you may not go for a full 90, but figure out what is your sweet spot of how long can I really sit and concentrate. Might be 15 minutes, and that's okay. Then your time box might be 15 minutes. Does that make sense? So Carlos's question is, if you're dealing with somebody who's timely, organized, and has requests, and in fact you are a person who is not quite at that level of organization, how do you deal with somebody like that? Do some of you have some coworkers that are similar? Either there's Michael's raising his hand in the back. So one of the things is, it goes back to tone and language and communication of, Lauren, slow down. I don't have 90 minutes. I can't do that. And my ability, you might be a little bit vulnerable, but my ability to really concentrate and stay focused for 90 minutes might be really hard for me. But I can do 2 45 minutes, whatever. So can I do 45 minutes early and then, take a break and then come back? So you've got to figure that out, but I think a lot of it is communication and being able to say, slow down, because we've sped things up, haven't we? Emails. I send you an email, Hannah, and I'm like looking at my email 5 minutes later. Has she responded? Has she responded? Well, she hasn't, because she's not even sitting at her desk to look at her email, and she doesn't have it on her phone. She's in a meeting. And so, but that's our expectation in the world today. So I think it's really communication, Carlos, and being honest. Here's what I can do, and here's my capacity. So good point, good point. Moving ahead, just my book's in the back if you're interested. Here's my contact information. The book is available for $20, 2 for $30. Pretty proud of it. It's a cool book, and it's one of those things that I believe that it helps people figure out what's their recipe, if you will. So with that, I want to stop, and I want to just open it up for general questions. Usually a morning like this prompts and provokes thought, because you're thinking about all the stuff that you have to do and how might you do it differently. So I'd love to hear just some comments as to what might have resonated with you that you might make a change or that you found of value. So on the back of, yes, so on the back of the page, so her question was, there are things on my to-do list I really love to do, and I'll do those all day long, but the things I really don't like to do, oh, it's tough. So I kind of direct your attention to the fourth one, which is match the time, energy, and task. And that is, if you have to do, Mary Jo, really detailed work, and you really don't like doing that detailed work, as an example, when are you best during the day of doing detailed work, even though you don't like it, right? So when's the best time for me to do that? So it's kind of saying, okay, I'm fresher in the morning, my mind, and so it will take me less time to get that done when I have that, and I know, and it's kind of your bargain with yourself of saying, I know that I don't like doing it, but to keep my job, I need to have it done, right? So it's really matching the time and the task with what your energy is and when's the best time to do it. Because here's what happens. Most of us are not intentional about our task, time, and energy. And so we will try to get it done either all day, or we'll tackle something really hard that we don't like at the end of the day. Brian Tracy is a pretty well-known author. He wrote the book, Eat That Frog. His deal is eat the ugliest, the hardest, the toughest frog first thing in the morning so you're done, and after that, the rest of the day is a piece of cake. Works for some people, doesn't always work for others. So it's a question of what works for you. So, and again, it goes back to time management techniques. You currently probably have in your arsenal right now 8 to 12 that you use on a daily basis that you've picked up along the way. Does that make sense? And you're comfortable with it. My question for you is just look at those and say, are they working for me, or do I need to jettison them? Or is there a technology that might help me be a little bit more productive? And go with that. So you don't have to keep always doing what you've always done, right? And so what can I do a little bit differently? Now, here's the thing. If my book says 30 strategies, I would not suggest you implement 30 strategies. That's going to be nuts. That just adds to the overwhelm. You wouldn't want to do that, right? So it's like, what can you do? A couple of things that'll make it. So thank you for bringing that up. Whether we like it or not, we get labeled as, oh, don't give that to her don't give that to Lauren because she'll sit on it for a while and she's the bottleneck in our department, and you get labeled as that. Or on the opposite side, you get labeled, oh, Trisha's the go-to person. She will get stuff done fast. Give her everything. And then Trisha just like starts drowning. We do get labeled. And part of that is, and here's where I believe that we don't think about this enough, but it does impact our promotions. And as a business owner, it does impact your profits. Because if stuff is not getting done in your business, then in fact, it really, it can impact the profits. I know of an individual who, he just could not get things together, and he in fact had to, to kind of make some changes in his life because whatever it was, he was not actually getting stuff done. And personal satisfaction was out the window, overwhelmed and frustrated. And why do you want to live that life? You really don't. And I always believe, on the flip side, I have a lady who, she actually works for the FAA, and I work with her on a weekly basis, and I'm her accountability coach, if you will. And we talk for 10 minutes. What are you doing this week? What are you focused on? How'd you do on your stuff last week? And it's very bite-sized, small steps. The woman has done, and we are in week 7 right now, she has done an incredible amount of progress with regard to the area that we were focused on, but also with regard to the other areas of our life. It's kind of like one of those things, you start cleaning up one area of your life, the rest kind of follows. So, hope it's helped. Thanks so much.